Okay, the stomach. So the stomach is the next location for the chyme. Once the fluid leaves the esophagus, it flows through the cardiac sphincter into the stomach, and then the stomach has a job of storage. So functions of the stomach. Main ones are storage, hold the food for about 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, and also mechanically break the food down, mechanical digestion, as well as some chemical digestion occurs here as well. So, in the stomach, especially in the stomach's mucosa, you have these glands. These glands there. And the glands may start off in the submucosa, and then they have cells along the glands, and the different cells will release things into the duct that will come up and make their way into the lumen of the stomach. Okay, so you have several types of cells in what's called your gastric glands. So this is a gastric gland. Okay, and in the gastric gland you have cells. It's called, for example, let's call this cell right here. Call this your mucus cell. So the mucus cell makes mucus. That's its job. Makes mucus to line the stomach, cover the epithelial cells of the stomach. You also have some lower ones called mucous neck cells that also make a kind of usually the top surface mucus cells make an alkaline, neutral mucus, while the deeper ones make a more acidic mucus. But they're both called mucus cells. Some they're called mucus surface cells or mucus neck cells. But they both make mucus. So keep it as simple as that. Then you have your chief cells. Chief cells make pepsinogen, which is an inactive form of an enzyme that will be used to break down your proteins. Chief cells also make lipase, something called gastric lipase, as opposed to lingual lipase. But lipase is an enzyme that breaks down fats in the stomach as well. Okay, then you have let's make these cells your parietal cells. So your parietal cells, they make HCl, hydrochloric acid, which is a very important secretion. It gets the stomach to be a very low pH environment where pathogens can't survive, so they can't move further along in the GI tract and can't get into the body. Okay, a little bit more on how the parietal cells make HCl. So here's the blood. Your capillaries come to the stomach, and here are your chief cells. Sorry, your parietal cells. Blood, this is parietal cells here. And over here is the lumen of the stomach. So this is the gland. So this is the lumen. This part is the lumen of the gland here. So you have chloride ions come into the blood, get absorbed by the cells, and then get passed in to the lumen of the gland. Doing that. Then you also have CO2, carbon dioxide, also comes in, as dissolved plasma. The dissolved plasma gas comes in to the cell, combines with water to make carbonic acid. Then that carbonic acid will dissociate into H+, which gets pushed into the lumen, and then bicarbonate, which gets pushed back into the blood. Okay, and then the H plus and the Cl will combine to form HCl inside the lumen of the gastric gland, then it's pushed, bubbles up into the stomach lumen. So the HCl does several things. So function of HCl. Right here. So HCl functions. Okay. It lowers the pH of the stomach to around 0.8. So it's a very harsh environment in the stomach due to the low pH. And at that low pH, most pathogens die. So it kills pathogens. Not many things can survive the stomach to go on further along the GI tract. That's one function. It also activates pepsinogen. So pepsinogen, which is made again by your chief cells, is an inactive form of an enzyme. And so pepsinogen is converted to pepsin by HCl. Okay. And then this is the active form of the enzyme that then has a job of breaking down proteins for you, and we'll hit that part later on in the lecture. Okay, so look, and it also activates, just by the pH level, activates your lingual lipase. So the lipase that you made in the saliva, once it's swallowed down in the stomach, this HCl helps to activate that enzyme as well. So then that enzyme can go on to break down your fats for you. So that's HCl, how it's produced and what its functions are. Okay. You can get next to your, so the stomach then, is very active, and its activation, its activity can be broken down into 3 phases. There are 3 phases of gastric activity. So gastric activity means stomach activity. So 1, you have your cephalic phase. Okay, the cephalic phase happens when the brain activates the stomach. So just the thought of food will make the stomach start to get ready for food. You start to growl, it starts to make HCl, it starts to get ready. Okay, so here, brain triggers stomach. Example, the thought of food. Thoughts of food would make the stomach start to work. Then the next phase is called the gastric phase. In this phase, so this is the most active phase of the stomach activity. So in the gastric phase, here about 2/3 of all secretions, HCl, gastrin, pepsinogen, all those secretions, most of that occurs during the gastric phase. So 2/3 of all secretions is occurring during this phase. And here, this phase starts once food enters the stomach. So triggered by food entering stomach. So basically, once the esophagus drops off food into the stomach, this phase is triggered. And during this phase, this phase produces hormones or chemicals called like gastrin and histamine. And these both will have the effect of producing more HCl. So it really amplifies the production of HCl. And these are made locally these are made by G cells of the stomach. And these are made by cells called ECL cells, enterochromaffin cells. It's called ECL cells. ECL cells make histamine, G cells make gastrin, and both of these chemicals help to trigger your chief cell, your parietal cells to make more HCl. Okay. And then HCl is what will go on then to activate pepsin and lipase. And then the third phase is your intestinal phase. Here, this phase begins when chyme enters, so triggered by chyme entering your duodenum. Remember that the stomach enters into the duodenum. So as soon as food gets into the duodenum, here, this phase is triggered, and its job is to slow down the activity of the small intestine. In a way, it's saying, slow down so I have more time to break your food down chemically in the duodenum. You can't have food just rushing into the small intestine. This job is to slow it down. So here in the duodenum, you make things like secretin and another hormone. So secretin and CCK. And both of these hormones will act to decrease gastric activity, decrease the production of HCl, decrease the movement of the musculature of the stomach. Okay, that way the small intestine has time to process the food. It also makes gastrin as well. So, and the gastrin that's made here by the duodenum is just like the gastrin made by the stomach cells. It also helps to amplify. So a little bit of it is used to amplify, while most of it here is used to decrease. So the gastrin made by the duodenum will have the effect of enhancing gastric activity. But more or less, these two dominate the process to slow it down. That way the duodenum has more time to process the food before more comes tumbling in. Okay, we'll pause there.